This happened back in 2019 when I was going through a bit of a phase. I was obsessed with abandoned buildings. Something about the silence, the decay, the stories left behind. I was working part-time and had weekends free, so I started checking out old factories and houses near my city. Most of them were just empty shells, but one place stuck with me, St. Elora Hospital. It was a psychiatric facility that shut down in the late 80s. There were a few local rumors, bad conditions, a fire in one of the wings, that kind of thing, but nothing too dramatic. I found it listed on an urban exploration forum, with GPS coordinates and a warning. Go during the day, don't go alone. Of course, I didn't listen. I brought a camera, flashlight, and a friend of mine, Jenna. She was into photography and thought it would be cool for her portfolio. We parked behind the tree line, hopped a rusted gate, and got in through a basement window that had been broken out long ago. Inside, it was cold, even for late spring. You could hear the building settling, metal groaning, bits of ceiling creaking as we moved through. The air smelled like mold and disinfectant. There were old signs still hanging. Occupational therapy, intake, pediatrics, a few rusted wheelchairs, mostly just trash and vandalism. We spent maybe 20 minutes on the first floor taking pictures. Nothing weird, just a bunch of crumbly hallways and rooms. Then we went upstairs. That's when things started to feel off. In one of the wings, everything looked almost preserved. Beds were still made, plastic cups still on the bedside tables, and someone, recently, had swept the floors. Jenna thought it was just another explorer staging things for photos. But it didn't feel like that. It felt maintained. We heard footsteps. Not loud, just one or two creaks, like someone was walking down the hallway behind us. We froze, called out, "Hey, anyone there?" Nothing, but the steps came again. Closer. Jenna swore she saw someone dart across a doorway. We figured someone else had come in, maybe a squatter. So we started heading back to the stairs, but took a wrong turn and ended up in the admin wing. That's where we found the records room. Most of the files were gone, but there was one old cabinet still standing. Out of curiosity, I opened a drawer. Inside, everything was covered in dust, except for one folder sitting on top. It had a patient name I didn't recognize, but the birth year was the same as mine. I flipped through it, just notes, dates, intake forms, and at the bottom, a Polaroid of a young guy, probably early 20s, blurry, sitting on a hospital bed. I swear to you, it looked exactly like me. Jenna said it was probably a coincidence, or someone else had left it there as a joke. But the folder was dated 1986, and the clothes in the photo weren't modern. I didn't know what to think. We left right after that. No running, no screaming. Just this heavy, silent walk back through the hospital. We didn't hear the footsteps again, but when we got to the basement, the window we came through had been boarded from the outside. Fresh nails. We found another way out through the loading dock. Didn't speak the whole drive home. I still have the photo. I've shown it to a few people, and most say it just looks kind of like me. But I see it. I know what I looked like back then. I've never been back to St. Elora. The place was demolished in 2022, but sometimes I think about that cabinet, that hallway that looked recently cleaned, and that photo. Maybe it was all just a trick of the mind. Maybe someone planted it. But if that's true, why did I hear footsteps upstairs when Jenna was right next to me? This happened about 3 years ago. At the time, I was working freelance as a photographer, mostly small stuff. Real estate gigs, weddings, local events. But on the side, I had this personal project I was working on, documenting forgotten towns across the Northeast. You'd be surprised how many are just gone. One day they're on the map, and the next they're barely a line in a county archive. That's how I ended up in Sycamore Village, Pennsylvania. I found it while digging through old state records. Population peaked in the late 1950s, then started declining fast. By 1974 it was empty. No big news event, no disaster. Just people moving away, one by one. There were rumors, bad water, a failed development deal, maybe a factory layoff, but nothing concrete. The place just faded. That kind of quiet disappearance stuck with me. So one Saturday, I packed my gear, drove 3 hours out, and found it tucked behind a ridge, down a half-paved road with more cracks than asphalt. I honestly wasn't sure I was in the right place until the trees opened up and the rooftops came into view. It looked like time had frozen. I got there around 7 a.m., just after sunrise. The air felt heavy, like it hadn't moved in years. I parked near what used to be the town square, just a concrete fountain and a few benches, overgrown and sun-bleached. The houses around it were falling in on themselves. Wooden siding peeled like old wallpaper. Cars sat rusting in driveways. Some still had license plates. I started taking photos. It was exactly what I was looking for. Quiet, decaying, almost beautiful in that haunting kind of way. but something about Sycamore was off, and it wasn't just the usual ghost town feeling. Everything was too intact. No graffiti, no broken glass, mailboxes still standing. One even had a newspaper inside, yellowed, but dry. It didn't look ransacked, it looked maintained. As I worked my way through the neighborhood, I noticed one house that looked especially well preserved. White siding, green shutters, a small porch with a swing still hanging straight. No dust, no leaves piled in the corners, like someone swept it that morning. Then I saw the light. In the second floor window, a warm yellow glow, not bright, just enough to tell that it wasn't sunlight. I froze for a second, thought maybe someone else had found the town. Another photographer, or maybe a squatter with a generator. I took a step closer, looked again, and that's when I saw her. A woman, middle-aged, wearing a dress, just standing there, not looking out the window, just standing. I raised my camera instinctively, then stopped. It felt wrong. I backed away from the house slowly, didn't run, didn't shout, just nodded toward the porch like I was acknowledging someone and moved back toward the road. I didn't take another picture after that. I drove straight home, no stops. Didn't even review my photos until the next day. That's when I noticed something strange. All of my photos turned out fine, sharp, clear, well lit, except for one, the one of the White House. It was corrupted, just static and digital noise, like the camera couldn't process it. I checked the file info, same settings, same exposure, nothing wrong with the shot, but it was just scrambled. I tried to forget about it, told myself it was just a squatter, a coincidence. Maybe I imagined the woman in the window. But about a week later I got curious, started digging into Sycamore again, found a digitized article from 1974, the year the town emptied out. It was about the final bus leaving the village. At the bottom was a black and white photo, 4 or 5 people standing by the bus. One of them, a woman, was circled. Margaret Ellis, the caption read. Local school teacher, missing. Never boarded the evacuation bus. It was her, the woman in the window. Same face, same dress, just younger. I haven't been back to Sycamore since, but sometimes, late at night, I open that corrupted photo on my laptop. The screen just flickers. No image, but I swear, if I stare long enough, I can almost make out a shape in the static. I used to work as a night janitor at a high school in a small Pennsylvania town, Pineview High. The job was simple. Clean the halls, restock the bathrooms, lock everything up by midnight. Not glamorous, but quiet, peaceful even. And for the most part, it was peaceful, until I started hearing the sounds. It began about 2 months into the job. Every night, around 2 a.m., I'd be mopping the east wing when I'd hear this low, steady thumping noise, like someone slowly walking down a staircase. Thing is, Pineview doesn't have a basement, or at least, that's what I was told when I started. The first time I heard it, I figured it was pipes. Old buildings creak, no big deal. But it kept happening. Same time, same rhythm. Eventually, I decided to figure out where it was coming from. I traced the sound one night to the far end of the maintenance wing, an older part of the building students didn't go near, mostly storage and utility closets. That's when I noticed something weird. One of the walls didn't line up with the rest of the floor plan. There was this section between 2 janitor closets, about 6 feet wide, where the wall jutted out a bit, like something had been sealed off. When I knocked on it, it echoed. A week later, I finally asked the head custodian, Greg, about it. He laughed and said, "Old boiler room. Been sealed for decades. Probably asbestos down there." I asked if he had a key. He didn't. But after some digging, I found one in a box of old keys tucked in the back of the supply room. No label, just rusted brass. I didn't know why, but I kept it in my pocket for a week before using it. One night, I stayed late, waited until the school was completely empty. Then I unlocked the door. It stuck at first, like it hadn't been opened in years. When I finally forced it open, I was hit with this musty, stale air, like opening an old attic that hadn't been touched in decades. There were stairs, concrete, narrow, going down farther than made sense for a 2-story school. I started counting as I descended. 37 steps. At the bottom was a metal door, slightly ajar. Behind it, another hallway. It looked like a whole other wing. Same linoleum tile as upstairs, but faded and cracked. Old lockers, classroom doors, broken lights flickering overhead. No dust, no cobwebs, just silence. I walked through it slowly. Every door was slightly open, but all the rooms were empty. Desks, chairs, chalkboards, like a mirror version of the school above, but abandoned. Then I saw the bulletin board. Taped to it were class photos, black and white, yellowed with age. The names underneath didn't mean anything to me until I spotted one. Alex Monroe. That was the name of a kid who went missing my senior year. He just never came home from school one day. They searched everywhere. No leads. I recognized 2 other names from news stories. Missing students from the past couple decades, all in the same district. That's when I heard it. Thump, thump, thump. Slow footsteps, coming from the far end of the hallway. I turned and started walking back toward the stairs. Not running, just moving. but the footsteps kept pace with me. Thump, thump, thump. As I passed one of the classrooms, the door creaked open wider. I glanced inside. Someone, or something, was standing at the chalkboard, writing. Its back was to me, but the writing, it was my name, over and over. I didn't stick around to see the rest. I bolted up the stairs, nearly tripped on the way. When I got back to the main floor, I slammed the door shut and relocked it. I told Greg the next day that I thought someone had broken in. He shrugged and said he'd look into it, but nothing ever came of it. I quit 2 weeks later, found work at a warehouse across town. But here's the part that still keeps me up at night. A few months ago, I was driving past Pineview and saw construction crews out front. They were tearing down the east wing, the same one with the sealed door. Out of curiosity, I pulled over and asked one of the workers what they'd found. He said, "Weirdest thing, looks like there's a whole lower level under that side of the school, not on any blueprints. No idea why it was sealed up." Then he paused and added, "Only thing down there was a single light still on. No power to that section, nothing hooked up." He laughed it off, but I didn't, because I know what's down there, and I think it knows me too.